How's it going, everybody? Handsome Dan here with episode 8 of the Grand Tournament. We're in the home stretch now as we finally have a player on match point. If you want to catch up on the action up until now, make sure you check out the full playlist, which can be found in the description below. Let's go ahead and take a look at the scoreboard now to see where we're at. Caleb was finally able to pull ahead in Game 7 with a win from Ilharg, which means he only has Golos left to play. If you missed our first video, the Golos ban happened after we had already locked in our decks for this event, so we're playing it through with Golos still legal. That leaves me and Jelly with 2 wins each, and Derek's still fighting to put something on the board. We'll go ahead and see what decks we pulled out in our fight to claim the championship or stay alive to play another round. As I just mentioned, Caleb's last deck is going to be Golos, Tireless Pilgrim. This is an EDH version of the Chromatic Black deck from 60 card formats, looking to generate lots of mana with cards like Urborg and Cabal Coffers, then filter that mana into a big Tormented Hailfire, or generate tons of value through Golos' activated ability. Caleb has to mold to 6, and he'll start off with a Sunken Hollow, Soul Ring, Circuitous Route, Arcane Signet, Manascape Refractor, and AC Tyrant of Gyre Strait. For me, I decided to go with Extus, aka Awaken the Blood avatar in this game. My game plan is usually to generate mass tokens and slowly drain the table, but with Caleb on 3 wins, I may need to lead into a combo outlet instead. I end up keeping a conservative hand with the Toxic Deluge, Lingering Souls, Tainted Field, Godless Shrine, Orzhov Signet, Vault of Champions, and a Talisman of Indulgence. Jelly surprisingly decides to go with his Kess Dissident Mage deck, wanting to make sure he represented all of his decks at least once in the tournament. This is a very streamlined combo deck, looking to churn through as many cards as possible to hit a Thassa's Oracle combo win. He'll mold to 6 and keep a hand with Flusterstorm, Night's Whisper, Volcanic Island, Thassa's Oracle, Talisman of Dominance, and Blood Crypt. Finally, Derek is breaking out Jodah again to stay on theme with the combo decks. This big mana deck isn't quite as fast as the competition, but it's looking to ramp hard and spit out a bunch of high cost spells for the reduced Jodah price. Derek will keep a hand with the Temple Garden, Rogran Triome, Boseiju Who Shelters All, Regrowth, Sky Shroud Claim, Bring to Light, and Invert and Vent. Derek wins the pregame die roll, so he'll be going first. Derek starts us off by playing a Wooded Foothills. He'll crack it, losing a life, to go fetch a Ketria Triome tapped. Caleb goes next and plays a tapped Sunken Hollow, then passes. Jelly will also play a Wooded Foothills, but he'll wait to crack it. I'll just be playing a Godless Shrine tapped as my land for turn, and then pass after that. Back to Derek, who plays a Rogran Triome as land for turn, which will come in tapped. Caleb is going to play a Watery Grave tapped, then cast a Soul Ring, followed by an Arcane Signet. At Caleb's end step, Jelly will now crack his Wooded Foothills, getting a tapped Steam Vents. We'll go back to Jelly now, who will untap and shotgun a Blood Crypt. He'll use his mana to cast an Arcane Signet, and then pass. On my turn, I'll play a Tainted Field, then tap down to cast an Orzhov Signet. Derek will be starting turn 3 by playing a Boseiju, which comes in tapped. Caleb now has enough mana for a turn 3 Golos, so after missing a land drop, he'll cast Golos, using the ETB trigger to get an Endatha Triome tapped. Jelly will now play a Volcanic Island as his land for turn, then tap to cast a Dimir Signet. He'll use his remaining mana to cast Windfall, making everybody discard their hands and draw 7 new cards. With a brand new hand, I'll play a Concealed Courtyard as my land for turn, then cast an Arcane Signet. I'll follow that up by casting an Ophiomancer, then pass. At my end step, Derek will cast Mystical Tutor, searching his library for an Explosive Vegetation and putting it on top. On Derek's upkeep, I'll have a Snake from the Ophiomancer, and he'll draw the Explosive Vegetation he just tutored for. He'll play a Bountiful Promenade as land for turn, then tap down to cast the Explosive Vegetation to get a Plains and a Swamp to the battlefield tapped. Caleb will go to his turn, casting a Dryad of the Elysian Grove and shocking in an Overgrown Tomb as his first land for turn, then playing a Swamp. He'll tap to cast the 3 visits next, searching for a Ketria Triumph to the battlefield, then he'll use his remaining mana to cast Chromatic Lantern. He'll go to combat after that, swinging Golos at Jelly, who can't block. Jelly will be up next, and he'll play an Exotic Orchard as his land for turn, and follow it up with a Dockside Extortionist. This is going to make him 7 treasures. He'll use the remaining mana to cast Duress on Caleb, who reveals a Damnation, Merciless Eviction, and a Strip Mine as his hand. Jelly will pitch the Merciless Eviction, then use treasures to cast his commander, Kess. With Kess now on the battlefield, Jelly will use her ability to cast Night's Whisper from his graveyard to lose 2 life and draw 2 cards. He'll finally go down to 1 treasure, and then cast Necropotence. No one has any responses, so he'll pay 16 life into the Necropotence to get 16 cards at his end step, then discard down afterwards. Jelly's last turn was a big red flag for us, but unfortunately I don't have any answers in my hand, and so I play a Sulphurous Springs as land for turn, then cast Siphon Mind to make everyone discard a card, and for me to draw 3. Derek starts turn 5 off with a Hollowed Fountain, which will shock in, and then decides to cast his commander, Jodah. We already saw what was in Caleb's hand on the previous turn, and so instead of playing anything from it, he'll activate Golos, getting a pretty low impact hit of Oracle of Moldiah, Torment of Hailfire, and Swamp. He'll play the Swamp, cast the Oracle for free, and be forced to cast the Torment for 0. Finally, he'll play a World Tree as his second land for turn, and with nothing else, he'll choose to swing Golos and his Dryad at Jelly. Jelly will block Golos and take damage from the Dryad. Now we'll get to Jelly, who starts off with a Luxury Suite as his land for turn, and then he's going to go in for the kill. He'll cast Doomsday, and go to start constructing his Doomsday pile.
Yeah.
But he probably wouldn't Doomsday if he didn't have it.
Who knows?
He fucking knows.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? Doomsday's not exactly an easy combo to pull.
Not what I'm doing.
Yeah.
For most people, it was a Tuesday. For me, it's Jelly with the fucking thing.
With Doomsday resolved, Jelly loses half his life, then goes to cast a Jeska's Will, targeting me. In response, I'll cast a Village Rites on my Snake token to try to draw some answers, but finding nothing, I'll cast a Vampiric Tutor to limit the amount of mana that Jelly will be getting. Jeska's Will nets him 7 red mana and exiles the top 3 cards of his library. Since Jelly set up his deck with Doomsday, he knows what he's going to see, and so he reveals the Chain of Vapor, Frantic Search, and Thassa's Oracle. He'll go to cast the Chain of Vapor, targeting his Dockside Extortionist. Derek will respond to it by casting an Assassin's Trophy on the dockside to destroy it, and Jelly's going to respond with a Pact Negation to counter the Assassin's Trophy. Jelly will now recast the Dockside Extortionist using the floating Jeska's Will mana, creating a bunch more treasures. Jelly will wrap up the combo by casting Frantic Search to draw 2 and discard 2, untapping 3 lands. He'll then use blue mana to cast Thassa's Oracle. Since he has no cards left in his library, this combo is going to win him the game, which means that Jelly is going to be your winner for Game 8 of the Grand Tournament.
But yeah, that was
I was a mana shy. I think
What are you gonna do?
I was gonna blood pact you.
Do what?
I was gonna blood pact you.
What does that do?
Oh, you should draw 2 cards.
Draw 2 cards?
That'd been dope as hell.
That wasn't even hot.
I don't know why.
Well, we all knew this game was coming eventually, as Kess was very likely the most powerful deck at the table. While Jelly's Kess isn't the most powerful version of the deck possible, it was still able to succeed quickly as the table lacked the interaction necessary at the right times to disrupt the various combo pieces as they came up. With most of the table being slower decks and no real pressure on Jelly's life total, it was fairly easy for Jelly to cruise to victory here. As for the other decks, it's really hard to give an assessment of how they function since the game was so short. As I pointed out at the end of the video, I ended up 1 mana short of being able to cast Blood Pact on Jelly to make him lose the game, but ultimately, the Blood Avatar deck just lacked the interaction pieces necessary to combat Kess on its winning axis. Jelly's pick of Kess was a bit of a surprise, and since we were blind picking our decks, I didn't know until it was too late. Unfortunately, that means that the pressure's on for both me and Derek, with 2 players on 3 wins each. Speaking of Derek, we didn't get to see much from Jodah either this game. However, there was a key moment where Derek attempted to kill the Dockside Extortionist and got his spell countered. Derek also had an Anguish Unmaking ready to go, along with Boseiju to make the spell uncounterable, but unfortunately he tapped out to cast Jodah rather than holding up mana. Derek also could have used his Mystical Tutor to find an answer, rather than playing it for value to get a ramp spell, but chalk it up to unfamiliarity with the Kess deck to know where and when he would need interaction versus developing a board state. Golos also wasn't able to get anything accomplished for Caleb. One of the few answers he might have been able to have would have been a Bojuka Bog, as Jelly had his Thassa's Oracle sitting in his graveyard for a couple turns following that windfall. However, because of turn order, and because Caleb ramped so early, Golos ended up coming out a little bit too soon for Caleb to be able to tutor up an answer. Kess getting a win in this event seemed like a bit of an inevitability, but the question to be asked for this game is whether Jelly pulled the trigger on playing Kess too soon. While there's certainly something to be said for getting the 3 wins in this format, the title isn't won until you get to that magic number of 4. Would it be better to save your closer deck for last, or would you rather get the wins on the board as soon as possible? Let us know what you think in the comments, and tell us if you'd make the same decision as Jelly here. We'll go ahead and take a look at the scoreboard now, where, as I mentioned earlier, it's a dire situation for me, and especially for Derek. The two of us are going to have to work together to keep ourselves in the game, but is that going to be enough to stop Jelly or Caleb? Or will either Golos or Talran sneak in a win before the rest of us can catch up? If you want to find out, make sure you like and subscribe so you can get notified when the next episode's out. But that's going to be it for this one though, so thanks everyone for watching, and stay tuned for next time.